Welcome back to Nick Landis Comic Corner, Classic Non-Classics, episode number 2,000! Yes, 2,000! Who would have thunk I'd get this far with this series? My gosh, by far my longest review series to date. Out of all the review series, and all the anime, all the other series I do, this is the longest. And can you believe that this comes out basically as I'm recording this month marked 9 years since I started this series? Yes, 9 years. I'm like, wow. Now, you're probably curious though, what the heck did I review my very first episode, which came out roughly 9 years ago? Well, it is basically kind of an odd thing because the way I did stuff back then was different per se. Now you probably know for the playlist this one where I call it Comic Corner 2, there is actually a reason for that. Because basically that, well, okay, here we go. Now, it's a quite interesting time, basically, I did this. Of course, I'm looking at basically when I did my first episode of this one, it was December 2013. I thought it was November, my mistake, I think it was. But yeah, I think it was actually next month basically was like that. Yeah, it was basically, I'm looking at image of my very first video, episode 0. This was done in my old house. And, of course, back then I had a full goatee. Yeah. And plus also, I was about 20 pounds heavier. 30 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I actually recorded in my kitchen. Now, the reason for that was because the Wi-Fi in my old house was not very good. So, at times, in order to get a proper signal, I had to do it in the kitchen. And later on, when we replaced the original Wi-Fi we actually had, after me and my mother complaining about it, my dad finally replaced it. So, eventually, I would do my recordings in my room. And you probably would notice, basically, from my early videos, that I was doing some yelling when I did my videos. There is a reason for that. Because I originally recorded my videos on YouTube Capture. A feature that has since been discontinued. It was actually discontinued about a year after I started this particular review series. And a friend of mine, Tivia, who I met the following year, as a matter of fact, the very same year I met Edgar and people from the Awesome Universe. And my people I've known online basically have grown. These are real legit people who I talk to online. I've never actually met these people in person. Never have. I know these people exist because basically I've seen them on camera. So, I know these people exist. And you're probably curious though, what the heck did I review my very first episode for this review series? Well, in the case of episode 0, it was just an introduction to this one. But in the case of my very first episode, I think I viewed a few things. Mostly put up just viewing some Superman trade. I'm trying to see. I think I reviewed issue 400 for Superman. Yeah, I think that's what I did my very first episode. Yeah, reviewing Superman and some other stuff. Eventually, of course, this did evolve to, now at first, basically, you probably know some of my videos, my early ones, where they actually have the title while reviewing the episode. I did that for a bit, but I never did it for a while. I did do the original comics originally, but I did stop that for a while because, basically, I didn't think it was necessary for me to do it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm looking quick at my playlist here. I think the first graphic novel I ever reviewed was basically Nightwing and Night Bloodhaven. That was the first one I ever reviewed. You're probably thinking, okay, what was basically my first double shot, per se. That was on episode 16. That was my very first one. And at first, I just did one trade. I took it for a while. I did it for a long time. And then I dropped it, and I brought it back. It was not a regular thing with me. And then later on, it did become a regular thing with me when it came to doing double shots. And I have gotten used to doing since then. Also, you may have noticed over the years that I've done triple shot. You know, reading 3 trades in a video. I never did those as much, per se. I've generally stuck doing try to do double shots because I like reviewing 2 trades. That's mainly the reason how I do this stuff. And over the last couple years, I've also included reviewing stuff on a website that I've been reading comics from for the past 7 years, per se. I do like using it. The problem is, over the last couple years, it's been these ad stuff pop up in here. Excuse me. And I've also gone back doing individual issues. But I do it like long format stuff. Basically, some may be taking up like just 2 individual trades. One was a recent, I think it was just earlier this year, I think it was, where I did like 13 straight issues of Wolverine. Where those are collected in 3 straight paperbacks. Then sometimes the reason why I do it because I can't get my hands on these freaking trades. They're sometimes so hard to get my hands on. So that's mainly the reason for it. One person's favorite type of trades that I love reviewing is these big collection stuff. The reason why I like reviewing those is because it gets down a lot of stuff pretty quickly in just one big book. Now, yes, a lot of the time I do buy these from the library. I check them out from the library, and then I review them, and then I return them. Simple as that. And over time, basically, I've switched computers in the last 9 years. I originally had a Toshiba. Now I've got an HP computer, which this one works a lot better. And I've also changed programs. Because the program I was using with my Toshiba is actually no longer in use anymore. Nope, it isn't. I don't know why. I've tried downloading it, but it was impossible. So I downloaded the current one I use, and it works perfectly fine. I've only had one issue with it. One time I had a minor problem with it, but otherwise, though, I've had no issues with this particular recorder. Also, I changed microphones. As a matter of fact, this current microphone I use is not my original microphone. Oh no. Sometimes basically, I also had like another microphone I use, which I have on my desk. It was a small Amazon microphone my sister got me for Christmas one year. That worked. But the problem is basically with that one is that if I had it basically, it was kind of a weird one. I had to basically hold it in order to basically get basically, because sometimes basically people can hear exactly what I said. The current microphone I use works a heck of a lot better. I've had 0 issues with this microphone. Occasionally, I've had to switch ports basically where it's in. Now, you're probably thinking, Nick, you're rambling on about basically stuff that happened years ago. Well, it's a 2000 episode. That's why I basically like to, like whenever these particular ones, these big ones anyways, I like to do a look back and see how far I've changed, for example. I have also basically, I've heard some people complain early on. I have problems saying a lot, or basically certain phrases. Sorry about that. People have also suggested I should edit my videos. Here's the problem. I have no idea how to do that. That's the honest truth. I do not know how to edit a freaking video. Basically, what you're seeing is one take. Now, I've had to change a video because basically, this was episode 10 of this series because, and the video has since been deleted, by the way. You probably will not find it. The reason for it is because I flipped the bird. Yes. I did receive a complaint about it, so I took it down and redid the video. My thoughts of these books didn't stay, it never changed. Yep. Now, originally for a long time, I just did Marvel and DC. Eventually, I ventured outwards, did basically trades from Image, Dark Horse, Boom, IDW, which I'm going to talk about. Technically, these are trades that are published by IDW, but they were issues published by Marvel Comics from the 1980s. Now, this one, despite the fact this year, what inspired me to do this one is because Linkara recently did a complete all-in-one of his retrospective of this particular series of Transformers. Started back in 1984 and was concluded in 1990, at least 1991. It was relaunched Generation 2, though that IDW did bring it back as a brief ongoing revival for about 20 issues, just because it was because the writer of the series, Simon Frost, I think his name is, who also wrote some books on IDW, he wanted to basically wrap up a story. This book in particular, this is called Transformers Classic Volume 1. This is a new printing. Apparently, this has gone through several different printings because of all the legal issues involving this book. I heard. Excuse me. This book contains the first 13 issues of the Marvel Transformer book. Issues released from September 1984 to February of 1986. Yes, seriously. Now, of course, originally, like, if you see the cover of this thing, which, by the way, there's gorgeous covers to this thing, it was originally listed as a 4-issue limited series, which has been ongoing due to popularity and good sales. Now, the series basically is known for introducing a lot of characters, and then later on killing off a lot of characters. But we're going to talk about the important ones. People like Optimus Prime, Ironhide, Bumblebee. Now, in the book, we have Buster, who was written like Spike was in the animated series. But Spike does show up. I heard Spike does show up in the book, and he's written to be a complete jerk. And apparently in Dreamwave and in IDW, they kept him up basically ran this way. So the first issue basically is just detailing the backstory of basically the Cybertronian Wars. And on the Decepticons, these only Decepticons that matter. Megatron, Soundwave, Ravage, Starscream, Thundercracker. These are the ones that, in my opinion, are the ones that do matter. Everyone else is mostly exchangeable. Mostly, anyways. So, we have various rares on here. Yeah, the rares we have on here are, get this. For the first two issues is just Bill Mantlo, with co-writing by Rob Macchio. Then we have Jim Surkrupp. He does issues 2, 3, 4, and then Bob Boski takes over on the writing of issue 5, and he's basically the writer from that point forward. Now issue 2, like, aside from the introduction of a lot of the classic characters, we also introduction of like Cliffjumper, Wheeljack, like there's many different attacks you get detailed here. Just basically kind of mostly recapping. Not like Linkara goes every single itching detail about these issues, per se. Eventually we see the debut of Buster Witwicky and Sparkplug Witwicky. Now, why is he called Sparkplug? I don't know. So he goes to drive-in, meets up with his girlfriend, who I heard currently, after the series, and it was revealed that she actually got killed by the Decepticons. Yes, seriously, apparently Buster got killed too, and Spike hates Transformers for that. So his car he gets in, gets wrecked, rides out Bumblebee, and of course they had the first plot of the thing was getting fuel. That's the main plot part of the main first 4 issues. Yep. They have Optimus Prime versus Megatron in this book. Yeah. And of course, Ravage in this series speaks. Now, the first I ever heard Ravage speak was actually in Beast Wars. Yep, where he was a converted Decepticon to a Primal. Yep. So they have the whole thing explanation of like, oh yeah, like he's a Transformer, not exactly believing. I like the movie basically, didn't buy it at all. But issue 3, originally this issue could not be printed because of a guest appearance by a Marvel-owned character, Spider-Man. And here's a fun fact. I actually remember mentioning in my review, when I did a review, I think it was like New Avengers / Transformers, I kind of asked this question. Why wasn't she included in this trade? Because it's the only issue of the whole series that features appearance by Spider-Man. And of course, they do reference in tongue-in-cheek, basically mildly, in one of the issues. Yeah, it's mostly just, well, you have Spark fucking kidnapped, the whole fuel plot. By at the end of the first 4 issues, everybody's all dead. Yep. So, excuse me. So eventually, of course, basically, like, we have stuff. A Cliff Jumper meets up with Spider-Man, which there's a bunch of legal issues I might go into now. For the Secret Wars, Mattel. It's a whole bunch of stuff here. But it's a good issue, and yeah, it is the only appearance of a Marvel staple character in this whole series. And despite you could say Marvel tried to make this canon, no, it could not fit in the Marvel Universe because basically the events of the series will be too widely noticed by. It would be impossible to keep this hidden. I do mean impossible. Yep. So. Yeah, so we have the end of the fourth issue where we have pretty much every, and of course we have issue 4 is noteworthy for 2 things: the debut of the Dinobots and the debut of, I kid you not, Shockwave. Yeah, he's not Decepticon that matters. Yeah, unlike in the animated series where he did jack frickin' squat, here Shockwave is intelligent and he frickin' does stuff. And apparently he's like the arch nemesis of the Dinobots. And apparently this rivalry is dealt with more in, get this, the Transformers UK comics. So, yeah, so they have this, everybody die at the end of the issue, though they all come back, no problem. And Starscream stands victorious. They're all dead. By the way, More Meets the Eye, that was actually an IDW comic book. Yes, Transformers More Meets the Eye. That was a comic published by them. I believe was relaunched as Lost Light. They even have one called Robots in Disguise, set in the same universe. And they had to drop Robots in Disguise over confusion with the new TV series of Robots in Disguise. The second one used the name. Yep, so, like, oh yeah, so basically we have everybody just recovering and just trying to rebuild after the first 4 issues, which were really good and classic, by the way. So yeah, we take all the Autobot stuff and dialing brains, and we have Optimus being alive. And then we have something that you probably think would never happen: Shockwave versus Megatron. Yeah. Issue 5 is debut of GB Blackrock. GB Blackrock is basically a stand-in for Tony Stark. Yeah, that's simply put what this guy is here for. He is basically like all mannerisms. He's pretty much Tony Stark, except he doesn't wear a suit of armor. Yeah, but that's simply put the thing about this character. And I believe issue 5 is even also his secretary Josie, who becomes, I think it's like Cyber or something. Yeah, and she basically, there's a whole bunch of legal stuff on her too. Or Marvel owns rights to her real name, but Hasbro owns rights to her code name. It's weird. So, we have lots of big action stuff here, but I do recommend checking this out because it is really good. I can't exactly do this book justice because basically, like, Link Hard just did a great job reviewing this thing. I just want to basically chip in and get my thoughts. The fact that this book is just so awesome. I give Transformers, the classic Transformers, despite the fact I could basically just finish there, but it's an absolute classic book. I give the book a 10 out of 10. It's excellent. Next up it is G.I. Joe, well, classic G.I. Joe, Volume 1. Yep. And this book contains the first 10 issues of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero comic book from Marvel Comics. The first 10 of 155 issues, which IDW brought back, I think it was like in 2007, I think it was, and they brought back the original writer, Larry Hama, and the book is actually ending with the very next issue, at issue 300. And fun fact, that is actually IDW's longest running comic book. Just behind it is basically the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No joke. That seriously is 100% completely true. If you look at any comic published by IDW, this book is the longest one. Just behind that is Turtles. And once the book ends, Turtles is the longest running comic book. Everything else has either been relaunched or just been published for not as long. So, mostly put, Larry Hama is the main writer for this book, with basically have Herb Temple and the underrated Steve Grant on the writing. Herb Temple also does the artwork with Don Perla and Mike Venberg. Now, G.I. Joe. Now, you're probably thinking, G.I. Joe, Duke, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Hawk, and a bunch of other characters. Duke is not in the first issue. Nope, he doesn't make his first appearance till around issue 25. These characters, who are commonly associated with the Joes, make his very first appearance in this very issue. We have Hawk, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, and the whole plot of this one, the first issue of the series, is that we have this reporter, this big newspaper person, get kidnapped by frickin' Cobra, and the first person of Cobra we see is the Baroness. Yes. But of the Cobra organization, the very first issue, the only pair of people from this organization you see in this opening issue is the Baroness herself and Cobra Commander, who, of course, basically is known for switching masks. Either the KKK mask he occasionally wears, or the silver-plated mask he occasionally wears. He goes back and forth. So we have Hawk basically going to, you might think, oh, he's going to the pit. G.I. Joe is known for having several different bases over the years. The pit is the most noteworthy one. They also have base up at North Pole, in the pits in the desert. They have bases all over the place. And the purpose basically to fight G.I. Joe Cobra in the field. So, there's also Breaker. Breaker is not really a big of a character when it comes to G.I. Joe, but if you think about it, the only Joes that matter that basically debuted in this issue is Hawk, Snake Eyes, and Scarlet. They're the only three who matter because these three are around a lot. Hawk, not very much as the other two are, but he's important. Because he, for the longest time, was the longest running commander of G.I. Joe. And he's a 1-star general at the start of the series. I think he's like a colonel. Then later on he gets promoted to, I think at one point he's actually a 4-star general later on in the series. And by the way, we see the debut of Cobra Commander. And here he is wearing his KKK mask. Yeah, I'm not the one referred to as that. A lot of people refer to him wearing the KKK mask. And a lot of the cults, and basically, Cobra is basically a terrorist organization that's most associated with. And it's because kind of this organization, that's probably the reason why that Jason Voorhees, aka Cobra, who's later changed to King Cobra, they probably try to change his name in order to confuse with the Cobra organization. Now, we do see some, not exactly some his tanks per se. Now, you might be curious about Cobra's base operations. They're usually based on islands somewhere in the Pacific or Atlantic, but that's mostly how they have the base operations. At one point later in the series, they made it to a freaking country. No joke. Cobra came in an actual country. So we have the Joes basically raid the place and rescues one woman. And by the end of this issue, they do rescue her. But here's the strange thing. She disappears and she's dropped out of the first issue. Second issue is basically it's at one of their bases out of the North Pole, where it gets raided. And most of the just shows off an issue in the North Pole. That's most of it is. It's a good issue. Don't get me wrong, it's a great issue. But it's not really, it's just an introduction of of an Eskimo character. But aside from that, not really a lot happens in issue 2. Issue 3 is basically Joe's versus a giant robot. Built by frickin' Cobra. Yep. That's issue 4 for you. Yes. By issue 4, We have debut of... This is not a joke. This is 100% completely true. Issue 4 is the debut of, I kid you not, WWE Hall of Famer Sergeant Slaughter. Yes, he was a member of the Joes. And did you know that Roddy Piper was a member of Cobra? No, seriously, he freaking was. In the toy line, he never appeared in the freaking TV show. Sergeant Slaughter did. And get this, he was actually played by the actual Sergeant Slaughter. Yeah, so if you ever hear him in the cartoon, that is the actual Sergeant Slaughter. That is legit. And the only reason why the character was dropped from the G.I. Joe line was because of the Iraqi sympathizer gimmick. That was the reason why he was dropped. Yeah. Not because of some legal issues. That thing that he had to do in 1981, that was the reason why the character was dropped. So, yeah, it's basically Sergeant Slaughter. And yes, he is referred to as Sergeant Slaughter. If you see him on a TV show, he's basically wearing his wrestling gear. No joke. That's seriously how he is. So, and I believe this is supposed to be him. I'm not sure because basically, actually, this is not really Sergeant Slaughter, but he actually is part of the Joes. Yep. So, basically, it's more like a training camp infiltration. This one. Excuse me. That was most but like the first few issues. Issue 5 is simply, oh, let's have Battle of Cobra in Central Park. Yep. Yeah, the Battle of Central Park. Yeah, this was a really interesting idea. They have tanks mowing through there. Yes, seriously, tanks. Then you probably think at this point, Cobra, where's Dr. Mindbender? Where's Destro? Not here. Not here. They didn't make a debut. So a good aspect issue. Issue 6 is basically just, or they've got like a giant fortress related to them. Did you know at one point that, get this, did you know that in the cartoon, Cobra controlled a space station? Yes, seriously, they did. They control an actual space station. And you might be thinking, where's Zartan? Not here. He's not making his debut yet. He's not here yet, so there was like infiltration stuff when it comes to Cobra. It's basically a run-of-the-mill issue when it comes to Cobra. And then issue 7 is quite interesting because it's a Cold War era issue because, it's the 80s. Where you have, get this, where you have a Soviet team up with a Joe to take on frickin' Cobra in a well-done issue. And they basically do it because they have no choice in the matter. So they would work together to stop Cobra, and they go separate ways even after the issue. But it was a damn good idea, too. Issue 8 is simply just a strike issue. Just there, like, attack in the mill stuff. But nothing as interesting as, like, issue 7. Of course, they go to space. Yes, they go to freaking space in this issue. And then issue number 9, it's all about Scarlet. Yep, and they have this, oh yeah, let's say the Joes break into a freaking farm, which is basically a Cobra base. Not the main one per se, but yeah, they break in this place, which is so awesome. Now, issue 10 is simply this. Excuse me. Issue 10 is the debut of Springfield. Springfield. Okay. The explanation behind Springfield, from what I've read about this particular town in the G.I. Joe universe, this apparently is where Cobra Commander is from. This is his birth town. And apparently a lot of the Cobra Commando, the people who work for Cobra, are from this town. And apparently, when he became the leader of the Cobra organization, when he founded it, he pretty much delved some resource of the money from it to the town itself, because it was basically a desolate town. It was one of the poorest towns in the country, and apparently, from his perspective, he has reason to become a terrorist because no one gave a damn about his town. Yep, and the whole point of this one, just basically infiltrating the town itself. Yeah, that's the whole point of the issue. Just debut with Springfield. It is a base for Cobra, but I don't think it's the main base per se, but it is a damn good issue. Mm-hmm. Then we have a joke basically where we have Scott be able to Hulk, and then we have sort of a Hulk opening. Now, this is probably when they open up one of the movies for Hulk, because basically the Hulk TV show, probably the Hulk Returns, possibly. I'm not sure. Or it could be when the show ended, possibly. But yeah, just a really good trade. This one also give a 10 out of 10. Now, the G.I. Joes don't get as much as love as, let's say, as given to Transformers per se, but the Very American Hero line was simply a reboot of a basically just a plain soldier for that apparently my late uncle used to play with. Yes, my late uncle, he used to play with G.I. Joes. Well, not the Very American Hero line. Oh no, that didn't make his debut in the 80s. This is basically back in the 60s. Yeah, my uncle used to play with them, so he's made with those G.I. Joes, but I personally have never seen those. I'm only familiar with the American Hero line. And can you believe this year is the 45th anniversary of this line? No, seriously, it's been 40 years since the debut of this line. 40 years. While in the case of something like Transformers, that line made its debut in 1984, which is the same year as, get this, Ghostbusters 1 and the Turtles. So this year is basically the celebration of 3 franchises debuted that very year: Transformers, Ghostbusters, and Team of Turtles. 38 years this year. Yep, 38 years. Which, that is something. Yep. Yep, but I'm wrapping up here because basically I need to get another anime done. So yeah, that's episode of you. Next one's going to be Spy X Family. And I'm hoping to get that done tonight. As for getting done the other anime with Chainsaw Man, I probably will save it for tomorrow, along with hopefully a wrap up of the Go Ranger stuff. Okay, next video. Bye.